Hello, I am here to respond to a controversy. It's a pretty controversial controversy, one that could be apparent going forward. Controversies and all that. I'd even say it's controversial. And today I am here to apologize for this controversial controversy that has ever been controversy, but that's not a word, so just roll with it. I wish to apologize for I, Vince Genix, am a FNAF fan. I mean, come on, I made a Bendy and Poppy playtime video. This was fairly likely. However, with me preferring both different mascot horror and horror in general, I'm always going to hold FNAF near and dear to me. Somewhere. Maybe in my arteries. Five Nights at Freddy's, well, it kind of doesn't need any introduction, but I'll talk about it anyway. Five Nights at Freddy's, or FNAF, is a point-and-click horror game where you play as a security guard, defending yourself off against screaming Muppets. This led to a viral success and spanning off into a franchise of games, books, movies, food products, and more. The games themselves had very unique marketing choices that made it stand out in the indie horror space back then. It had simple gameplay, horror based on atmosphere, interesting character designs, and more importantly, lore and jump scares for YouTubers to overreact to and pick apart to make that sweet, sweet rent money. However, after 6 entries, people felt the sit and survive point and click formula was getting a little stale. Something had to change. But what if I were to tell you that in 2019, a VR game for the franchise released to the world, known as Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted? I've recently gone back to revisit some of the games in the franchise. Just for me. No reviews in mind for the games at this very moment, and recently decided to replay the first big push for this franchise. Originally released in May of 2019 as a VR exclusive game, getting a flat mode just a few days after my birthday, December of that year, I originally held this game in pretty high regards when I was in high school. However, over time, as you revisit stuff, you begin to think, did this really age that well? So I downloaded Help Wanted's flat mode just because my headset is honestly kind of unbearable with VR stuff, and beat it start to finish, and simply put, it aged alright. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this reheated, revisited leftover ravioli. But before I do so, I want to thank you guys for 100 subs. I'm going to celebrate by smoking 100 cigars. Starting off, we have the Muppets appearing right in front of us, in this admittedly cool title menu. Moving around in VR or flat mode feels like a real rush of dread, especially when you see Foxy lurking around like a creep. The hub area is a little bit alright, but at least it does invoke the feeling of, wow, we're in Freddy's, you guys! The prize counter is a little fun thing to do within the hub area. For at least 4 minutes, then it kind of loses its luster. The main gameplay features recreations for FNAF 1, 2, 3, 4, sorta. The initial first impressions when first played, or first watched, because, none of the fans actually played the damn games, are seemingly a one-to-one recreation of the games in VR. However, on my revisited playthrough, I've noticed that under the hood, animatronic encounters are in no doubt scripted. What I think mainly makes it unnoticeable in first playthroughs, or first watch-throughs, whatever, is that they are intentionally scripted so that on a first playthrough, players will react to an animatronic showing up and going, oh my god guys, that was so scary. This normally wouldn't be an issue for other people, but the issue I have with scripted mechanics in a horror game is that it removes the surprise on different playthroughs, and honestly also removing replayability in my opinion. If you show the player, okay, the enemy works like this, so they will attack you under these circumstances, and that pretty much just shows your hand. I think the original FNAF games did a lot better with its tension because of the random AI set for the knights in each game, making them much more unpredictable, and therefore making them scarier. Good horror is calmly chaotic, unknown, and more importantly, unpredictable. Nobody is as scared of something when you find something that's scripted, but rather, not knowing a monster's next move is furthermore scarier. They did manage to fix this issue I did have in Curse of Dreadbear and Help Wanted 2, with it having more varied gameplay in each level, well, in the DLC and almost every level in Help Wanted 2. In terms of the visuals, they still hold up, but I really wish I could say the same for almost all of the animatronics. I don't know, they just look so bright and sometimes kind of polygonal. I'm gonna be honest, I never liked how the models looked in Help Wanted 1. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad some of them look a lot better in Help Wanted 2, but the original game honestly looked like bleach for my eyeballs. Yucky, get that out of here. Ew. There are more of these weird changes throughout the quote-unquote remakes of the OG games. FNAF 2's removed the wizards outright. Well, kind of. They did keep Withered Foxy in the main gameplay and just let the wizards be added in a patch for their own night. I'm not too pressed about it, but like, what was stopping them from adding them to the main nights? I think it was just made to make FNAF 2 easier. Same weirdly applies to FNAF 3. They make the cameras much more visible and more easy to detect Springtrap. Minigames for FNAF 4 are honestly kind of the weirdest changes. Instead of having all of the Nightmare animatronics, they make you fend off against Funtime Freddy, Nightmare Fredbear, Circus Baby, and Nightmarian. They did bring back the Nightmare animatronics for exclusively the hallway minigame for the Curse of Dreadbear section. They also have Dark Rooms, which focuses on Plush Trap, Nightmare Balloon Boy, Plush Babies, and Funtime Foxy. 3 of them pretty much work as you would expect from the originals, but Plush Babies is said to be one of the worst levels. If you do not have good reaction time or good observation skills, you are going to struggle with this one. They have repair animatronic minigames, but they're honestly, I'm not going to lie, they're the creepiest parts of the game, but they are kind of repetitive, I'm not going to lie. Vent repair is also a thing, with Mangle and Ennard, or Ennard, whatever. Hard mode is obviously the hard versions of those levels, but the only true hard one in my opinion is Night 5 of FNAF 1. This is mainly because the doors will constantly spam open and close, just because I alluded to earlier, scripted mechanics. Honestly, it makes the first FNAF game in this game a pain in the neck, just because no matter how much you watch Freddy, he's just gonna come to your door regardless and be a power sponge. They have hidden tapes that explain the lore for this game, and they're always a good find. However, they felt a little too well hidden at times, which truly did not matter in the slightest because you'd probably just get tired of looking for them and just look up all the audio logs on YouTube, which leads to a character getting possessed by a spooky evil entity and leading into the events of Security Breach. But going back to Curse of Dreadbear for a quick moment, I do appreciate how the gameplay is more varied with things like the Build-A-Mangle, the hallway, the Dreadbear minigame, and the Grim Foxy minigame. The Grim Foxy minigame for the most part honestly kind of felt like a prototype of Security Breach with a free roam gameplay, although I wish there were a little bit more stakes involved with it, like hiding for an elongated amount of time would cause an enemy to find you regardless, as to make you stay aware that you need to keep moving. But much like real life, we can't all have what we want. Damn. The Pizza Party minigame is honestly one of the most unique ones in the whole game itself, seeing as it alludes to just this one big maze so you can find the party, only for you to get led by the funny little entity to then lead you to one of the endings. Not the most riveting ending in the game, but honestly, it was the creepiest. Even with all the gripes listed above, I'd still argue that this game still aged kind of decently, but it's still a pretty good horror game at the end of the day, and I'd still argue that it made a mark by having a new leap forward for Five Nights at Freddy's. I hope Steelwool continues to cook for their next games going forward, seeing as they've taken notes from criticisms of Help Wanted 1 and Security Breach, and then implemented them into Help Wanted 2 and Secret of the Mimic. But you wouldn't know that because they have terrible marketing. However, if you managed to make it to the end of the video, I hope it was worth the watch, and if you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like and show more support by subscribing. This video was pretty fun to make, and I hope to cover more FNAF games and games in general with these little revisits. Who knows, maybe if this gets enough support, I'll consider revisiting more FNAF games and maybe Security Breach as it is years later. But that's all up to you guys. For now, I'm gonna go doom scrolling with FNAF memes, so I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.